Have you ever woken up from a dream so vivid that it felt more real than reality itself? What if I told you someone or something was responsible for it? In a quiet city, tucked away from the neon glow of its bustling streets, there existed an ordinary man named Ethan. Ethan had always been fascinated by dreams, not just the fleeting images that lingered in the mind upon waking, but the impossible, surreal landscapes that made sleep feel like a doorway to another world. Every night, he would write down the fragments he remembered in a worn leather journal, hoping one day to understand the language of his subconscious. Little did he know, a being from far beyond the stars had taken a particular interest in him. This being, known simply as Lyrix, was not human nor anything remotely resembling one. Lyrix hailed from a distant planet orbiting a dying star, where the inhabitants communicated not through words, but through the vivid projection of thoughts and emotions. For centuries, Lyrix's kind had roamed the universe, seeking worlds rich with imaginative minds. Humans, with their fragile yet chaotic dreamscapes, were a rare and precious find. Lyrix's body shimmered like liquid starlight, constantly shifting colors with an inner luminescence that seemed to pulse in time with the universe itself. The alien's most extraordinary ability, however, lay not in its appearance, but in its craft. Lyrix could paint dreams into reality, capturing the imagination of sleeping minds and weaving them into breathtaking visual tapestries. Each brushstroke of its glowing, iridescent brush could draw directly from the subconscious, pulling hidden fears, desires, and fantasies into vibrant, glowing forms hovering above the sleeper. Ethan's room became the stage for Lyrix's nightly performances. At first, Ethan thought the glowing figures he sometimes glimpsed out of the corner of his eye were merely the residue of a vivid dream, but soon he noticed subtle changes. The shadows in his room seemed to flicker with color, and objects on his desk subtly shifted as if influenced by an unseen hand. One night, as he drifted into a deep sleep, he felt a presence at the edge of his consciousness, a warmth, a faint hum that resonated with the rhythm of his heartbeat. Hovering above him, Lyrix dipped its brush into a stream of radiant energy that seemed to flow from the very air itself. With a flick of its wrist, it painted a series of intricate shapes, colors, and forms that shimmered above Ethan's sleeping form. The dreams that followed were unlike anything he had ever experienced. He soared over cities that twisted into impossible geometries, swam through oceans of liquid light, and conversed with beings made entirely of music. Each vision felt both profoundly personal and inexplicably universal, as if every fragment of his memory and imagination had been plucked, enhanced, and displayed by a master artist from the cosmos. By morning, Ethan awoke with his heart pounding and his journal overflowing with sketches he could barely remember drawing. Something extraordinary had occurred, though he couldn't yet comprehend its origin. And all the while, Lyrix watched silently from the shadows of his reality, preparing for the next night's performance, another journey into the depths of human imagination. Ethan thought he knew what dreams were until the night the dream knew him back. That night, Ethan lay in bed with a mixture of anticipation and unease. The previous night's visions had been unforgettable, leaving him with an electric sense of wonder but also a nagging curiosity who or what was orchestrating these experiences. As he closed his eyes, a faint glow filled his room before he could even drift into sleep. Lyrix appeared again, hovering silently above him, its form a cascade of iridescent light. The alien's brush hovered in the air, dripping with streams of colors Ethan couldn't even name. But this time, the approach was different. Instead of painting whimsical landscapes, Lyrix seemed to focus on Ethan himself, his thoughts, his memories, the tiniest details of his mind. The alien's brush moved with an almost surgical precision, tracing the contours of his subconscious. Ethan's dream began gently, like dipping his toes into a calm ocean. He found himself standing in a forest bathed in silver moonlight, trees stretching impossibly high, and their leaves shimmering with hues that seemed alive. At first, it was peaceful. But then the forest began to shift, bending and twisting in response to his thoughts. Every fear, every hidden desire, materialized as shapes and creatures around him. A shadowy figure emerged from behind a tree, mirroring his own doubts and insecurities. Its eyes glowed a haunting gold. Ethan realized he was not just watching the dream, he was interacting with it, guided by Lyrix's invisible hand. He could feel the alien's presence as a gentle hum, coaxing him to confront the shadow without fear. Slowly he reached out, and the figure dissolved into a cascade of glowing butterflies, each one carrying a fragment of his anxiety away. Lyrix's brush danced in the air, painting new pathways of light that carried him deeper into the dream. The next scene was even stranger. He was flying through a city floating in the clouds. Buildings constructed entirely of liquid light, People walked along streets that defied gravity, their laughter forming arcs of rainbow-colored energy. Ethan could feel the emotion in the colors: joy, sorrow, love, and longing blending into a symphony of sensation. Lyrix painted in real time, translating Ethan's deepest, most elusive feelings into something he could see, touch, and even taste. But the dream was not just a spectacle, it was a lesson. Ethan sensed that Lyrix was teaching him something essential, that the mind is both fragile and infinite, and that embracing both darkness and light could unlock new possibilities. Every brushstroke revealed a layer of himself he had never acknowledged, from buried childhood memories to unspoken desires. The alien was not simply entertaining him, it was guiding him, shaping his inner world with precision and care. When Ethan awoke the next morning, he felt both exhausted and exhilarated. His journal was once again filled with sketches and fragmented sentences, but this time, a new clarity had emerged. He realized that the dreams were more than illusions, they were invitations, a glimpse into the vast potential of the human mind when seen through alien eyes. And somewhere, hidden in the folds of reality, Lyrix waited ready to paint again. What if the line between dream and reality didn't exist? For Ethan, that line was about to blur. Over the next few nights, the visits became more intense. Ethan began noticing subtle changes in the waking world: colors slightly brighter, sounds more vivid, the air itself seeming to hum with energy. At first, he thought he was imagining things, but soon, even objects in his apartment appeared to shimmer faintly, as though infused with a light that had no earthly source. Lyrix had begun experimenting. Rather than merely illustrating Ethan's dreams, it started intertwining them with reality. One night, Ethan dreamt he was walking through a library with infinite rows of floating books. As he reached for a tome, he felt the texture of its cover, the weight of its pages. When he awoke, he found a small, luminescent feather on his desk, something that had never existed before. His heart raced. Could it have come from the dream, or had Lyrix somehow brought a fragment of the subconscious into the real world? The alien, ever patient, seemed to sense Ethan's growing confusion. Lyrix's brush now moved with a rhythm that felt almost alive, painting dreamscapes with astonishing detail. Cities rose and fell in seconds, oceans formed and evaporated in the blink of an eye. Ethan explored realms where physics bent, where thoughts could shape matter, and where beings of pure light communicated without sound. Each night pushed the boundaries of what he believed possible. One night, the dream took a more personal turn. Ethan found himself in a version of his childhood home, but everything was exaggerated. The walls taller, the furniture twisted, the colors impossibly vivid. There he saw a younger version of himself, sitting alone in the corner, clutching a tattered stuffed toy. Lyrix's brush hovered over the scene, illuminating the memory with soft, golden light. Ethan realized he was confronting old fears: loneliness, insecurity, the nagging sense that he had never truly belonged. The alien's paintings were not just beautiful, they were therapeutic. Every stroke seemed designed to help him face what he had long avoided. And with each confrontation, he felt a shift within himself. His confidence, his creativity, even his empathy for others began to expand. The line between dream and waking life blurred further. He found himself solving problems, envisioning ideas, and feeling emotions more vividly than ever before. But with this gift came a subtle unease. Ethan began to wonder if Lyrix could shape his dreams. Could it also shape his choices in the waking world? Was he truly free, or had he become an unwitting participant in the alien's experiments? The thought gnawed at him, a tiny shadow in the corner of his mind, even as he marveled at the beauty and wonder Lyrix created each night. One evening, as the glow filled his room and the brush hovered above him, Ethan whispered into the air, half afraid of the answer, "Why me? Why choose me?" For the first time, Lyrix paused. Its radiant form shimmered, almost as if it hesitated. Then, slowly, the alien painted a single image above him, a mirror reflecting Ethan's own face, surrounded by colors that seemed alive with emotion. And in that moment, Ethan understood. He was not just a subject, he was a collaborator, a participant in something far larger than himself, something that could change not only his dreams but the very way he experienced life. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed. Ethan was standing at the threshold of one such door. The following nights brought an intensity Ethan could no longer ignore. Dreams were no longer just fleeting adventures, they were entire universes shaped by Lyrix's luminous brush. He began noticing patterns, subtle symbols appearing in every vision, as if the alien were trying to communicate something beyond mere imagination. Geometric shapes, spiraling galaxies, glowing rivers of light all seemed to form a code just beyond his understanding. One night, Ethan found himself floating above a vast desert, the sand shifting beneath him like liquid silver. In the distance, towering structures rose from the dunes, monolithic spires carved from light itself. Lyrix's brush painted the sky with vibrant streaks of color, and each stroke seemed to resonate with a tone, a frequency Ethan could feel in his chest. He realized the dream was not random, it was teaching him to perceive patterns, to feel the music of reality itself. But this revelation came with unease. The more he learned, the more he sensed a delicate balance. The alien's gift was intoxicating, but he couldn't help but wonder, was he absorbing too much too quickly? Could a human mind withstand this continuous expansion without fracturing? His thoughts began bleeding into the waking world. He noticed fleeting glimpses of impossible colors, shapes and shadows, whispers and silence. Friends remarked that he seemed different, though none could put their finger on why. One particularly vivid dream carried him to a floating city above a stormy ocean where towers of crystal refracted lightning into cascading rainbows. He wandered its streets, meeting dream figures that spoke in riddles and metaphors, each representing fragments of his own psyche. Lyrix hovered beside him, painting constantly, yet for the first time, the alien did not intervene directly. Ethan was learning to navigate the dream on his own, making choices and shaping outcomes guided, but no longer controlled. Then came a moment of confrontation. A massive shadow emerged from the stormy ocean below, a swirling mass of darkness that seemed to embody fear itself. Ethan's instinct was to flee, but he remembered the lessons Lyrix had imparted. Fear could be faced, transformed, even embraced. Summoning courage, he approached the shadow, and as he did, Lyrix's brush dipped into a new color, a shade of light that pulsed with empathy and understanding. Together, dream and alien, they painted the darkness into a creature of beauty and wisdom, dissolving the threat into radiant energy. When Ethan awoke, his heart raced and sweat dampened his hair. For the first time, he realized he was no longer a passive participant. He was a creator within the dream, co-piloting with Lyrix in a collaboration that spanned the limits of human imagination. Yet questions lingered. Why did Lyrix care so much about one human? Were there others like him? And if so, what was the alien truly seeking? Ethan knew only one thing for certain. The journey had only just begun, and the line between his dreams and his waking reality was growing thinner with each passing night. Some truths are too vast to be spoken, they must be seen, felt, and lived. As days turned into nights, Ethan noticed a subtle change in himself. The world outside his dreams began to hum with possibilities he had never noticed before. Colors shimmered with unusual intensity, sounds carried hidden rhythms, and even the faintest emotions seemed amplified. Lyrix's nightly paintings were no longer confined to his mind, they were bleeding into reality, leaving traces that could be touched, smelled, even tasted. A single brushstroke in a dream could make a real flower bloom in his room, or a note of music linger in the air hours after he had woken. Lyrix, for its part, became more expressive. The alien's light pulsed faster, brighter, and the brush now left trails of shimmering stardust in the air. One night, it led Ethan to a dream unlike any before. A vast canyon carved from iridescent crystal, stretching beyond the horizon. At the bottom flowed a river of molten colors, reflecting fragments of countless galaxies. Ethan could feel the river pulling at his memories, sifting through them as if separating the ordinary from the extraordinary. He approached the edge of the canyon, hesitant. The alien's brush hovered nearby, painting luminous bridges that connected shards of his memories, fears, and ambitions. Ethan understood. Lyrix was showing him the architecture of his own consciousness. Every memory, every dream, every unspoken desire was a building block, and together they could shape the future of not just his dreams, but perhaps reality itself. But power came with consequences. With each painted dream, Ethan felt a strain on his mind. The boundary between imagination and reality thinned dangerously. Shadows of doubt crept in. What if he lost himself completely in this world of alien creation? What if the dreams became so vivid that he could no longer distinguish sleep from waking life? Lyrix seemed aware of this tension, pausing to let Ethan regain his footing, the alien's light flickering in quiet understanding. Then came a revelation. In a dream filled with floating spheres of light, Ethan saw glimpses of other human sleepers like him whose minds were being touched by Lyrix in similar ways. Some were unaware, others terrified, but all were connected by threads of light weaving through the cosmos. Ethan realized he was part of something much larger than himself, a network of consciousness being nurtured and expanded by the alien artist. As he drifted back to wakefulness, he noticed the faintest glow still lingering in his room. Lyrix had left a single brushstroke suspended in midair, a gift, a reminder, or perhaps a warning. Ethan's journal was overflowing with sketches, but they no longer seemed like mere fragments. They were blueprints, maps of his mind and heart, ready to guide him through the final frontier of this extraordinary collaboration. And in the quiet that followed, Ethan felt a sense of awe and a growing realization. Lyrix's true purpose had yet to be revealed. What was the ultimate masterpiece the alien sought, and would Ethan be ready to co-create it? The greatest creations are born at the intersection of courage and imagination. Ethan was about to discover what that truly meant. The final night arrived with an intensity Ethan could feel in his bones. The air in his apartment shimmered faintly, as though reality itself had grown thin and malleable. Lyrix appeared, more radiant than ever, its brush dripping with streams of cosmic light that seemed to hum with the music of the universe. Tonight, there would be no gentle guidance tonight. Ethan would step fully into the dream, and perhaps, into the unknown purpose Lyrix had been leading him toward. The dream opened like a portal to infinity. Ethan found himself on a floating platform of pure light, suspended above an endless expanse of stars. Nebulas swelled beneath him, galaxies twirled above, and the air was alive with colors that defied description. Lyrix hovered beside him, the brush tracing arcs of radiant energy that connected every star, every particle of light, into a grand, intricate tapestry. "This is it," Ethan whispered to himself. "The ultimate painting." But he was not merely observing. Lyrix extended its glowing appendage, and for the first time, Ethan felt its hand in his own. Energy surged through him, a connection not only to the alien but to the universe itself. Lyrix's brush moved faster, yet the strokes were synchronized with Ethan's heartbeat, his thoughts, his very consciousness. Together, they were co-creating a reality shaped from dreams, a vision of existence where imagination and life intertwined seamlessly. Ethan saw fragments of himself reflected in the stars, moments of fear transformed into courage, memories of pain transmuted into beauty, and unspoken dreams crystallized into radiant constellations. He realized that the alien's purpose had never been mere entertainment or experimentation. Lyrix sought a collaborator mind capable of dreaming with such depth that the universe itself could be painted anew. Suddenly, the infinite expanse quivered. Shadows of doubt and fear, manifestations of Ethan's own insecurities, emerged, threatening to undo the delicate creation. But Ethan, strengthened by every lesson and every dream Lyrix had guided him through, did not falter. He raised his hand, felt the brush pulse with his energy, and began to paint alongside Lyrix. Together, light and shadow merged, transforming the darkness into flowing patterns of radiant harmony. As dawn approached in the waking world, Ethan awoke, but something fundamental had shifted. The glow in his room had dimmed, yet he could feel it lingering, like a heartbeat beneath the fabric of reality. The dreams were no longer merely dreams, they were gateways, reminders of the boundless potential that existed when imagination and courage converged. Lyrix had left him with a single message, etched not in words but in a feeling that resonated through his very soul: create, dream, transform. Ethan smiled, reaching for his journal. The pages were blank, but he knew that he carried within him the brightest colors of the cosmos, waiting to be painted into the world. And somewhere, beyond the stars, Lyrix watched, ready to return whenever another dreamer was ready to co-create the next masterpiece of the universe. The line between dream and reality had vanished, and Ethan understood the truth at last. The universe itself was a canvas, and he had just begun to paint.